absolutely. Just quickly touch on, there was a program on Panorama last night about these alleged, I'm just going to call them special forces executions in the Middle East, in Afghanistan for the most part, from what I understand. Haven't watched the program, Charlie, but I did read a bit about it this morning. And it's alleged that, lots of weapons being placed by people that they've just taken out of the game, some allegedly as young as children, and all this kind of thing. And I just think it's really simple. If you've got young men, very often from very damaged backgrounds, put on an ego trip, full of testosterone, hyped up on Call of Duty where there's no consequences, sent into war to prove themselves to be a man, is it ever going to go a little bit wrong?
I think, how can it go right, Chris, is the actual question you need to ask.
Exactly. And I'm not here to be a juror, Charlie. I don't fucking know when on. I wasn't there, and I wouldn't judge anyone until actual facts came out. But this is being said by former, according to the, is it BBC, the Panorama? I don't...
Well, don't take this the wrong way, and I'm sure the BBC will say what they're going to say. I like to get my news sources from all over, including the BBC. I'd like to get a plethora of sources. Here are the facts. You're young. You've been trained to do a job. You are the edge of the spear. And there is collateral damage always in war. War should be illegal. To go out and murder anybody should be illegal, especially for somebody else's wealth. All war. I'm talking about all war. So whether they were right or whether they were wrong, what I do know is, I think, in my opinion, if they want to go to war, the people that suggest it should go. Yeah? Like, do you remember Frankie Goes to Hollywood, 2 tribes go to war? Remember that?
Yes, absolutely.
So if they want a war, they go. But if you want to send young men, highly trained, highly strung, damaged, right, with their Green Berets or their SPS or their SAS or whatever they are, into those situations, you're going to get some bad outcomes. How can anybody justify killing anybody? Because I've met Russians and they're all right. And I've met Ukrainians and they're all right. I've met Welsh people and they're all right. And I've met Indonesians and they're all right.
No, mate, don't
do the Welsh thing.
Stay within the boundaries of truth, please. My nan used to say, if you find a good Welshman, shoot him before he turns bad.
Well, that's because they couldn't colonize us. Well, you know what I'm saying, Christian? The insanity that you should be sending people over to another country basically to increase your wealth when you've already got more money you can ever spend. That was my journey to God, because I'm like, well, they've got all the power, they've got all the money. What on earth is the point of all this?
Well, they've now got the lithium, mate, haven't they, for their hooky electric vehicles? That's what Afghan...
I mean, I think if you want to be a politician, you should be instantly stopped, not allowed to be one. The only people who are allowed to be a politician are those who don't want to be a politician. To take the Gladiator scenario, the film, he didn't want it. He didn't want to be the Emperor of Rome. He wanted to just give Rome back to the Republic. Yeah. Caesar was the same. Yeah. The trouble is, people that rise in power are usually very weak people because they don't speak up. They go with the narrative above them. So what you end up with is somebody weak in power, very corruptible. And that includes, let's say somebody in the UK with the SS. Yeah. Somebody locking people up for hurty posts on Facebook. Yeah. Whoever they may be, somebody that likes the crack and likes to get snorted. Yeah. If you watch that program. Yeah. Because you don't know what you can say. Basically, if they want to be a politician, they shouldn't be allowed. The great thing about Vietnam is they don't have elections here. There's none of this. We're better than they are. No, we're better than you. No, you're better than us. None of that. If you've been in finance for 30 years, you'll be in charge of finance here. So that's pretty well qualified. If you've been in agriculture for 40 years, you'll be in charge of agriculture. That's pretty well qualified, yeah? There's a system. So people in the UK will be in charge of, like, that Rachel, whatever her name is, from accounts, yeah? She's in charge of the finance for the UK. She basically works in the bank doing customer service. What qualifications has she got other than the fact is she's joined the right party, she makes the right noises, and she's told what she's told, and she repeats it. Whereas in Vietnam, if you ever come here, and you're most welcome to come, Chris, it's beautiful. It's so well put together. It's so well organised. There's absolutely no need to moan. Mm. They're doing a great job.
Tony Blair was a urinal inspector.
That's too good for him.
I mean, at least he was a public servant, but I mean, come on. Yes, I'm mentioning this, Charlie, not really. I'm not going to, I'm not dropping anyone in it. I don't really care. I know what goes on in war. If you don't like horrendous things, folks, stop picking on the individual and stop voting. Because if you vote,
don't encourage them.
If you vote, you're going to get these weaklings that Charlie talks of, and they're just puppets, aren't they? Really, but no, I only mention it because.
Chris, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We're just about to have a blackout.
Sorry, folks. We just had to take a quick break because the power went out in Vietnam. I think someone tripped over the plug. Yeah. Charlie, I was more interested that one of my viewers asked me what I made of it all with respect to why does the BBC, who are the voice, I call it the mouthpiece of the big club, the dark network, the merchants, certainly the establishment, why do they keep going after the SF in this manner when you would think that they've got so many more wars planned, they're going to need, paid operators, I'm going to say. What was it Smedley Butler said? He said, I was a racketeer for the big money men, didn't he? Smedley Butler was America's most decorated war colonel, general, or whatever the high up thing is. And he said, I was nothing. When I look back at my career, I was like the strong arm for the money people. So why in that, Charlie, do you think in that case, the establishment keep going after their own soldiers? And I'm not saying here that just for people out there that might think I think people get a pass. I think if you hurt another person unjustifiably, you should face justice. That's just my view. That's what I'd want with my family. So I'm not condoning whatever may or may not have gone on. I'm just asking a question, Charlie. What, why are the establishment going after their own manpower when you think that they need these people for all the wars they've got planned?
They do need them. And when you're young, dumb and full of all that, you are very controllable. However, as you age and as you see life through different angles, you realize that basically you're a paid mercenary and a very underpaid one. Yeah. But you're a strong character and you're willing to speak out against it. And that then discredits the institution you're meant to be looking after. So actually, it's a double-edged sword. The SF people have gone through that rigorous training. When they open their eyes, and most actually do in the end, it's they get a voice because they are the people that have been there. And they realize that they've been used to further an agenda. And the agenda usually comes down to getting somebody else more wealthy that's already wealthy. So they want sheeples, soldier sheeples. Yeah, they want people that will do as they're told. And they certainly don't want dissenting voices. And the trouble with SF is you're taught to think freely. You're taught to do things differently. Yeah. Paddy, the SES fella that sort of broke every single rule in the military, but got the job done, is now what they don't want. Because if anybody speaks up when they're in the military, they get an instant voice like that young Marine recently on the DEI. that spoke out and said, look, you can't have DEI in the Marines, because if you're fat, you can't pass, and if you're skinny, you can't pass, and if you're weak, you can't pass. And there may be one woman in a million that may be able to pass, but the whole corps has to change for it. So they breed very strong-minded people that are indefatigable in achieving their goals, which is great. However, when they mature and see the bigger picture, not everybody does, they have a voice straight away because they're in it. So they must discredit that voice. Now, that comes in many forms, but it usually comes in forms of they've done something bad sexually, they've been caught with whatever drugly, they've messed an operation up. They will discredit them before that voice becomes powerful. So sometimes they need us and sometimes they don't. And when they don't need us, the trouble with us lot is we don't care and we're going to speak anyway. And that's because we're not scared. We've been taught not to be scared. We're almost psychopathic in our beliefs to get to the end of the mission. And that's a very powerful counter voice to their so-called narrative, because the BBC, the British Bullshitting Corporation, whatever you want to call it, right, are propaganda driven. And if that's all you watch, that's all you know. And if somebody gets on the BBC or on a big channel and they know they're going to release some information that's going to contradict what they're trying to sell the public, they will tell them anything. SF, First Sea Lords, I think the Royal Navy guy resigned this week, the Admiral, under some sort of sex scandal. Yeah. But I'd probably go a bit deep. My thinking is, okay, so a Royal Navy officer shagged a subordinate. Well, what's new, right? In my mind, it's been happening for probably 1,000 years, right? So it's an old playbook that they use. They use you when they need you. When you get a voice, if that voice doesn't go along with their narrative, they will use any form of propaganda then to discredit you. So an SF get a real voice. And, you know, with Middleton, Foxy, you know, yourself and various other SF will get a strong voice. So then you're a crackpot, a tinfoil hat believer, or a kid murderer. So the Panorama that I used to watch and absolutely be absorbed by, I take with a pinch of salt, because I think personally that's not the story. But whatever the story is, if you're sent and trained to go and kill people, and collateral damage in that, which is legalized murder, is that kids are murdered as well, that's on them. And they know it. It's on them. So, because if they hadn't sent them, they wouldn't be there. So I think, unbeknown to a lot of former Marines as well, that are still completely in that zone of BBC, they don't want the narrative to break, because the narrative is breaking, and they're struggling to get people to join up now. This Queen and Country has slipped away, and if SF starts speaking up, which is like the top of the tree, then they're just not going to be able to recruit anybody. So I think this is a psyop to discredit SF, because a lot of people that have left and been involved in operations are now speaking out when they've woken up and going, do you know what? I was just an underpaid mercenary. And so I think the Panorama are part of that. So do I believe what Panorama said? It's always wrapped around some truth, certainly, because that's how they get away with it. But would I say that that was the exact story? Well, I'd be very surprised, because I've never seen anybody in the BBC report correctly. I just see narrative. It's like when I walk in a supermarket now, I just see poison, you know?
The thing is, they're saying that 30 people have come forward, some of whom were supporting actors, support in the supporting role of SF, some of whom were SF themselves, some of whom are claiming it's SBS who haven't been in the spotlight up until now. And again, I know just from having been in the media or dealt with them, how they will literally cherry pick the lines for the documentaries that really sound the absolute worst. And again, I think I know this sort of thing goes on, because I'm not stupid, I'm not naive, I'm not gullible. I realise that you're utterly indoctrinated as a child, basically. You know, a teenager. If you're under 18, you're still classed as a child in the eyes of the law, and yet you're put through the most heavily programmed indoctrination of killing known to man. Ben Griffin says this, the former SAS guy who walked out of Iraq. He left after having served in Iraq because he actually said the Americans went out and they got hits on their targets every single night. He said, how come as Brits we couldn't find any of the people we were supposed to look for? So, sorry again, folks, we had another power. Vietnam's power was out again. But what were we saying? We were saying, why is the establishment trying to shackle their own henchmen? Could it be that the way that they're trying to look, you know, you said it yourself, the big club they work 10 steps ahead, whereas people just work like what's happening tomorrow or when's my next holiday? And could it be that this truth, Charlie, is bound to be coming out and they're trying to get their stamp, you know, their control on it now so that they guide the narrative as to where this goes, rather than rough old blokes who are dealing with PTSD. They're approaching their 50s and 60s and they don't give a shit. They're just going to tell the public like what really goes on, a little bit like what we're doing now. And then that becomes a bit of a, you know, is it a battle for the information is what I'm trying to say.
Well, if you control the flow of information, you control the thought process, right? So I'm very wary. I'm lucky enough, God bless God for letting me be in Vietnam, because I'm lucky enough in a supposedly, I don't know, socialist. They've got a foot in communism, a foot in socialism. They're the most capitalist people I've ever met. They work there. They've got great work ethic. Their government looks after them. There's no need to question them. And I would quite happily defend Vietnam because I live here, right? Because the country's run well. In America, they're under the illusion that they're free. They're not free. You can't even park anywhere. You can't do anything in the UK. You can't do anything, yeah? But they pretend that you can. But should you get a voice, they'll discredit. So if there's something gone on that the government have been involved in, they get out in front of it, yeah? So anybody that's involved in it, in my humble opinion, only my opinion, anybody that's involved in it will be discredited as a child killer, a paedophile, or a dissenter, a murderer, before the real story comes out. So when the story first breaks, let's go back to 191, if you rearrange the numbers, yeah? When that first happened, when I saw that, I was like, my God, that's the worst terrorist attack I've ever seen. Straight away, I was like, that's horrendous, you know? It just the towers went down, and then I didn't even know about Building 7, and it was like, good God, I can't believe this has happened. For those that are informed, let's just say there was a lot more going on than that, yeah? All right? And that was used as a catalyst to go into Iraq, who wouldn't go on to the dollar standard. Gaddafi wanted the gold standard, yeah? All the people that were taken out wanted to break away from the control of the US dollar. Fact. The first 4 presidents that were killed when something 19 came out years ago, for African presidents, the first 4 that were killed, ridiculous, kill themselves, all said no to the roll your sleeve up, okay? So if you dissent and you haven't got a voice, so what? Now, I've got a Facebook page. I don't know about my business page. It's just my page, just me, yeah? Not a narrative page. I had 100-something thousand followers on. Just me saying what I want to say, yeah? Not selling anything, just from my opinion, my humble opinion. And in Vietnam, I can post stuff. So I posted about Ant Middleton, about him. He's come out and basically said that, in essence, what he's saying is that And remember, SBS has always been very much an untalked about subject, right? Very much so. It's only recently now that anybody's even talking about SBS. It's always been sass, 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 sass. He's got a dissenting voice. Foxy's got a dissenting voice. The people that are built up to be heroes are all of a sudden turning on them, yeah? Because he's turned around and said, look, we're a Christian country, and if you don't stop this invasion, nothing against any other religions, but I come to Vietnam, I live by their rules because it's their country. I'm blessed to be here. And if I don't like that, then I go home. I go somewhere else. Yeah. People are coming to the UK and completely think they've got a right to change a Christian country into another country altogether. And they're backed by, it's painful, by a political elite that are going right along with it. And now you've got literally two-tier policing, two-tier justice. Now the people are now starting to go, hold on a second. We want refugees, yes, sure, of course. And we've seen real refugees, Chris. They come across the border, they put tents up, mum, dad, grandma, dog, cat, yeah? And they sit there, wait for the war to finish, and they go back in. So we know what a refugee is, a real one. They're not 18 to 45-year-old males running across the border. So they need to hold the narrative. And when Special Forces, SF, Royal Marines, SBS, SAS start speaking up or about to, they must be discredited straight away. And the best way to discredit is child murderer. Yeah? Now, they may have been given the order to do that directly from the higher ups, the Admiralty, let's say. That was never meant to be leaked. They did their duty following an order. Of course, that's going to come out at some stage. So what's the best way to discredit it? Child murderers. We've been given, we just did our own thing. Look, war in itself is wrong. Okay? It's legalized murder. Somebody comes in your house to hurt your wife or your kids. Well, good luck, yeah? Good luck to you. Right? Vietnam have clearly stated that they will not get involved in other people's conflicts, yeah? They will not play. So have Thailand, but they will defend their own borders. It's called Ministry of Defense. When they turn it into Ministry of Attack, which is what's happened for financial gains, and the soldiers start waking up, they've got huge problems with recruitment, controlling the narrative. So what's one of the best ways to do it? Well, one would be paedophile. Yeah, that's a great way of controlling it. Child killer, what's lower than a child killer? Yeah. And a lot of the soldiers that speak up when they're still in are still indoctrinated. So they don't know that they're being played. Yeah. So I think when you look at an incident 20, 30, 40 years later, something like the polio roll your sleeve up and the data's in, and it was caused by the roll your sleeve up. Yeah. In 40 years' time, the 191s will be seen clearly by everybody. In 40 years' time, this incident will probably be completely different. But in my humble opinion, anybody that's got all the power and all the money already, what's the driving force? Well, I think it's demonic, if you want the truth. And I found God through looking at this going, well, what more do they need? They've got all the money, all the power, all the wealth. Why on earth would they carry on with these, what we call the neocon forever wars? And yes, the politicians are getting paid very nicely. I don't care what you say, they are. Now, in Asia, Southeast Asia, I call it honest corruption because it goes on, okay? It happens. In the UK, it's disgusting because they try and make out that they're just they're doing it for the good of the people, and we must save the Ukrainians and whatever. Yeah, the G7 nations, have been in the last 10 years, in my humble opinion, and it's only my opinion, Chris, have been vile in what they've done to their people, from the roll-ups, the breaking down of the families, the narratives, looking after other people, forgetting their old people, causing a massive mental health problem, because psychiatrists diagnose people or they don't get paid. So everybody's got ADHD, BDB, CDB. Everyone's got a problem, yeah? Now, everybody's been through pain, right? Now, whether that pain was you couldn't get the car you wanted and you're on a trust fund and you thought that was the worst thing that ever happened, or whether you lived on a rubbish dump in Manila, we've all experienced pain, and it's all individual. When the SF soldier grows up, he's a problem. He's a real problem because he don't give a shit. Yeah. Now, I never thought I'd see a young Marine get on a podcast and talk about DEI, because when I was at Lympstone in 1984, they were trying to get they were trying to get a non-man through then. Yeah. And they just couldn't. All Arms Command, of course, they could, but not through Royal Marine
training. You did all right, mate.
Well, no, I mean, obviously some slipped out, but I thought I've got rid of the beard. No, but you know what I'm saying, Chris? If the narrative doesn't suit them, they'll drop you like a hot rock. That's what I'm trying to say. And they'll use all sorts of psyops to do that. My grandfather worked for a guy called Lord Astor, which was the Perfumer Affairs. He was the state manager. Yeah. Lord Astor wanted to take the pound sterling back onto the gold standard. Yeah. So I don't know if you remember the Perfumer Affairs, right? It was a big deal. The politicians, apparently, the Labour politicians who wanted that to happen, were going down to the farms in Devon where my grandfather was a state manager of, and having wild weekends, shall we say? They broke that in the press. Yeah. Remember, Lord Astor wanted to go back to the gold standard. They didn't want that, so they made out that he was obviously a sex-crazed lunatic, blah blah blah. And they went to my grandfather for the story, and they offered him £10,000 at the time, which was a lot of money. And he said, "Listen, I worked for Lord Astor. I saw nothing." He told the truth, yeah. And for that loyalty, Lord Astor left him 2 farms. But the point is, if you control the flow of information, you control the narrative. People that are in the forces are getting different information than people out of the forces. People in Vietnam get different information than in the UK. You got to be very careful what the information you're given, because every bit of information you're given is what they want you to see. So we'll be Trumpers, right? Because he's so much better than Biden, but he's still left, right wing, eagle in the middle. It's still the same agenda. It's still control. And why do you want more money when you've got all the money in the world? And why do you need more power when you're the most powerful in the world? Well, that's when you get into a bit deeper, and then you get into literally good and evil. So they'll use any narrative they want to make sure that the people that aren't stupid, but they're just trusting, are controlled, in my humble opinion.
Yes, that's one thing. Another thing that has to be said, and again, I'm literally not taking sides here. I've got nothing invested in this, but I do find that I think sometimes people in their keenness to get a chip off their shoulder can sometimes be a little bit like, and then this happened, and then this, and they're sort of cherry picking extreme events or a version of events, and I'm not trying to say anything here, folks. I'm honestly not. I'm trying to get something out which is a bit complicated, but you can pick someone to speak on a documentary, and it could be someone with an axe to grind. And when people have an axe to grind, you're going to get a lot of their version of the narrative comes in with it. That's kind of like what I'm trying to say.
Well, I see it like a divorce, right? When people get divorced, if you're the friends with if your ladies and friends with the lady, it's the man's fault, and if you're friends with the man, it's the woman's fault. The reality is that most divorces, it's both people's fault. Okay, both people have messed up somewhere. The reality of any war situation, in my humble opinion, I always say that because it's only my opinion. I'm not pushing a narrative. Is that we're being told in the UK that we must peacefully protest, only peacefully, in certain areas at certain times. Why they are using full force to get their agenda across the line. Whether that's in the air, the water, the food, the media, the institutions, the indoctrination areas, the universities. So I don't try and fight the narrative. What I've done with the company I've got, I'm not taking on the banks. I'm not stupid. I'm just trying to give people a decentralized way of using it, so they're not under the control of the paper that they change and print when they want, to give people real assets. So I'm always very cautious of any breaking news story that's negative, because especially when it's well reported. I mean, in Africa, they've got an awful disease. Have you heard of it? It's called starvation, which millions of people have been dying from, and the cure is food, right? So you've got people that earn $2 a day, yeah, getting $200,000 bombs dropped on them by people that earn $80,000 a year. So people that can keep earning billions of dollars through ongoing wars. So I only know it's the absolute truth if I speak to somebody with integrity. And again, it takes a long time to find those people. And you're very susceptible as a former military, when you go in a civvy street, of shaking somebody's hand and thinking they mean it. I'm sure you made that same mistake as well. So all I know is this. We don't have to be at war. We don't have to send the kids away. We don't need all this going on, because I live in Vietnam. They've stated quite clearly they're not playing. If you invade Vietnam, by the way, good luck if anyone's listening. Nobody's beaten them for years, ever, and they will never beat them, because they will defend their country, because their government genuinely looks after them. One homeless person in 13 years I've seen, Chris, in Vietnam. But if you want to invade Vietnam, good luck. So everything we are shown is because they want us to see it. I've had loads of videos taken down because I've said something that's hit a nerve.